Welcome everybody. This is the fourth event in our series, Looking Forward. This particular series will got some great panelists and a great moderator to talk about new business models. What we will do is I will introduce you first to our fabulous moderator for the day. Some of you may already know him. His name is Michael Gottlieb. He is a core graduate of 2011. He is the principal and founder of Momentum Law Group, which is a law firm that represents entrepreneurs. He and the other Momentum attorneys have the privilege of working with hundreds of companies throughout the DC metro area. They serve as outside counsel and assists with corporate, business, legal, and strategic matters, and provides guidance to support related to employment law, commercial real estate planning, and litigation. He's also started a new venture called Momentum Shift, which will be a series of entities focused on serving the entrepreneurial community. Michael, I will go ahead and turn it over to you so that you can introduce our panelists and we can get started.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. And I'm super excited to get to do this with you, all of you today. Before we get started with our introductions, I want to tell you why we're here and what the purpose of our discussion is. And it's to share with you a couple of amazing entrepreneurs' stories about making a change in the face of the pandemic. However, the pandemic is nearly done. We've been talking a little bit about that, at least we hope that it is. So you might be wondering why we're doing this now, right? Why would we talk about this change that they've made when we're kind of coming out of the pandemic as opposed to the early part? And the reason is, and it's a great question if you were thinking about that, the reason is because we want to inspire you to be willing to make the tough decisions and make the changes that need to be made even when times are really tough. And so if our awesome panelists can do it at the outset of a pandemic, you guys can definitely do it too. So let me introduce our amazing panelists. First, we have Bola Adina, and she is the CEO and managing partner at MBA Growth Partners, a business advisory firm offering strategic growth and operational efficiency support to organizations. Bola has 19 years of experience in the management consulting field with specific focus on the go-to marketing strategies, strategic planning, and business process optimization and automation. Her approach focuses on integrated solutions designed to enhance the cohesion of their clients' teams, optimizing their business processes and systems, and encouraging strategic planning for growth. Bola partners with her clients to explore how she might improve business performance to better serve the stakeholders by integrating data-driven metrics, operational excellence methodologies, and industry best practices. She holds an MBA from University of Virginia's Darden School and a Bachelor of Science from University of Pittsburgh. Our other panelist is Nick Groves, and he's the CEO of City Trivia, Inc., with 12 years of experience hosting public and private events all over the country. Now you probably understand why he was having a problem at the beginning of the pandemic. Nick specializes in providing entertaining distractions to people of all ages and backgrounds. He is the author of We Don't Know Either, the host of the Things That Are Blank podcast, and host of the Trivia Challenge on NBC Sports Washington, and creator of Trivial Rush, which is now available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Nick graduated from University of Maryland University College and is the father of Asher and Charlotte and husband to Sarah, which is important to some people, but mostly to him. Nick, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about what you've experienced over the last year with City Trivia.
Yeah, so we went pretty much from 1,000 miles an hour to a dead stop in one weekend. What was interesting is that I had spent the better part of the year prior to the pandemic becoming more integrated into sort of the national community of people who do what I do. We are very few and far between, and yet it's a, $100 million industry, and it's very interesting because everybody's kind of doing it on their own. So I had spent a lot of time reaching out, making friends, acquaintances and colleagues. And the first week of March, I was actually in Chicago, attending an event that was pretty much thousands of us all together at one place. They actually made a joke at the event that it was the last public gathering in the United States. They were joking, but they didn't really understand how prophetic they were. And what was really interesting is I got back into town over the weekend. I came into my office on Monday, talking with my business partners about what we would be looking at, what we were hearing, what we thought would happen in the future. And we sat down for our Monday meeting with all of our full-time staff, and we said, look, at some point here in the future, we don't know if it's going to be 6 months, 3 months, 3 weeks. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's probably going to be a good idea for everybody to start putting a little bit of money aside just in case we have to take a week or two off. We were upwards of 8,000 public events per year at that point. We came into the Friday recap meeting on Friday morning and essentially took a vote amongst all of the employees, and we all decided to shut down the company on that day. It was Friday the 13th of March of 2020. And the following Sunday, 2 days later, Hogan ended up shutting down all of Maryland, which was our base of operations anyway. So that was it. That was the end of business. Everybody went home. Everybody stayed home from that point forward. And from there, we said, okay, what now? And that was by far the biggest question that faced us. And what we decided to do, and what kept us all going over the course of the past year, was we had realized we were so bogged down in the day-to-day, the invoicing of the clients, the interviews of the new employees that we were bringing on board, all of the content creation, the writing that we were doing on a regular basis. And all of that was great. All of it needed to happen. But basically, whenever we had a good idea, whenever we had a shift or a change we wanted to make, we had a joke that we said in the companies: write it down. We had a filing cabinet literally in the back corner of the office. We would write it down, we'd stick it in the filing cabinet, and it would sit there until we had time to get to it, which of course never happened. So as soon as we shut everything down and we started basically dismantling some of the company in order to get all the financial aspects addressed, I went into that back filing cabinet and I pulled out 5 years worth of ideas and started going through them. It was a whole drawer of brilliant, well thought out, well articulated ideas that we had just written down and put in a cabinet. So we pulled out 2 or 3 of the best ones that we had, and that's what we've been working on for the last year. And it's been, to be quite honest, it's been a little bit liberating. Not having to worry about all of the minutia of the day-to-day and being able to focus on the future exclusively has been a tremendous, we're looking at it as an opportunity. And now that we're coming down to the close of the pandemic and we're looking at all of our previous clients, all of the ones that survived, that are calling us up and saying, when are we starting? Let's start right now. We've come up with a timeline where the Tuesday after Labor Day is when we're going to attempt to reintegrate back into society, and hopefully everybody will be ready by then, and it makes sense to do so. But when we do, we're going to come back with so many new cool toys and processes and ways of doing business that we had never done before. We're going to be able to cut 40% of our overhead from how we were operating in the past based on the advances we've made in the last year. And we're just, all of a sudden, we went from being a little sad and depressed. We went through all the stages of grief, right? We got angry, we were depressed, we started negotiating with everybody, and then finally we accepted it. And now, when the light at the end of the tunnel is so close, we are excited, we are energized. We've all been going through the motions and excited about what we're doing. But now that we have it in our hands, now that we can see the implementation, just over the hill, all of a sudden we're now excited and just looking forward to what comes next. And that's been helpful, to say the least, to have that energy back that we've lost over these last couple of years, or a couple of months.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, and we will definitely explore further. Bola, tell us a little bit about your business venture and the timeline in creating a new business just as the pandemic got started.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. So MBA Growth Partners, in its original sort of creation, existed to really work with small to mid-sized organizations to help them hone in their data so that they can make data-driven decisions. So what does that mean? Helping organizations think about, where are you spending your money? Where is your customer? Where are your customers coming from? Which ones of your services are, giving you the most value for your efforts, your marketing efforts, even processes, which ones are broken, and which parts of your businesses can be narrowed in on so that you can have a targeted focus for solving your business concerns. And the goal was to, prior to January 2020, I was working with Accenture, which is a business advisory firm, largely focused on helping and supporting the business operations of large organizations, Fortune 500 organizations, and government agencies. I felt like there was a gap in the marketplace. The types of best practices and solutions we were bringing to our customers, the very large customers, needed to be scaled down to and targeted for small to mid-sized companies. So the idea of MBA Growth Partners was to really take data, help our customers learn how to use their data so that we can provide the most efficient way for how to do business for them. Prior to starting the business in 2020, in January, I had taken 6 months to meet with potential clients, talk to folks about what we're doing, really get excited. And everyone was really excited with us as well, saying, let us know when you get started. Let's put meetings on the calendar. And as soon as January came, those meetings started to, we actually got really busy with the potential of doing business. Some businesses came through. But then, of course, as you all know, 3 months into the process, everything came to a screeching halt. Folks who had previously committed to do engagements with us no longer, number one, had the time to focus their energy on some of these nice to haves that they thought about. And also, people were just now looking to figure out how to survive. A lot of their revenues dried up. So the concept, the business concept that we had, which is, let's come in, let's help you think about how to make the best use of your data as a way to really improve your organization. Really, that concept became obsolete all of a sudden because it just was not relevant to the business environment. What was relevant, though, was the fact that, the case for some of the other aspects of the services that we provided around process streamlining, so making sure you have documented processes in place, automating of your processes, the ones that are manual, so that if you're not congregating in the same space, folks know what to do and systems can support that effort. But also being able to access documents from remote locations, so virtualization. These were all concepts that we were sharing with our clients that seemed really foreign. So when we talked to clients about, being business consultants, it was always it really just went over the head of a lot of our potential clients. They would ask, are you an HR specialist? Are you going to help me hire people? Are you a business coach? Which I guess it's a little close to that, but not really. Another question would be, are you an IT person? Which, there's some aspects of what we do that's related to technology, but really it was operational efficiency. And I think COVID really, or the fact that we all went remote, really brought that to bear for a lot of the customers that we were targeting, in that all of a sudden people understood the importance of having efficient operations in place so that you can run an efficient and effective business. So the argument was made, of course, for us, but how we wanted to approach bringing about the solution just was not relevant to the issues that they were dealing with. So how we pivoted was really now, number one, educating ourselves on our clients' problems. We enter the market with best practices, wanting to bring solutions that perhaps they didn't even think could apply to the problems that they had. But now we have to take a step back and really get to know our customers. What are your issues? And a lot of them, a lot of the nonprofits were trying to figure out, how can we stay afloat? What sort of new revenue models can be generated? How can we keep our people engaged in a remote location? How do we document processes for folks who are getting ready to walk out the door because they have family emergencies that they now need to deal with, and now the business needs to continue to operate, with folks transitioning in and out of the organization. So really what we did in terms of pivoting was take a step back, get to know our customers, what were the most pressing issues that they had, and once we understood that, then we paired it with which ones are we best positioned to solve as an organization. Based on our capabilities, our past experiences, what can we bring to bear to really help our clients solve these issues? And for the areas where there were gaps, what we also did was think about ways to tap into part-time workforces. Originally, we wanted to hire all of the consultants that we were going to be going to our clients with, but then we soon realized that we can tap into a whole array of consultants who have part-time solutions, either for strategic planning or for process design or data visualization, dashboard creations, or even social media marketing, things that perhaps were not our core competencies when we started, but we knew that there were other consultants that we can leverage their time and package a solution that made sense for our clients and take that solution to them soups to nuts without them having to think about fractional solutions for their problems. So that's what we do. We now consider ourselves a one-stop shop, so to speak, solution where you don't necessarily have to know how the food is made in the kitchen. We're bringing folks with different talents from all over the world, really, together to really help our clients solve their problems. And when we show up as a united front. Some of them are full-time folks who are working with us. Others are part-time folks who have their own consultancies. Others are just, working on a part-time schedule. But all in all, we come together to bring a unified solution to our customers so that they don't have to think about where to go to get different pieces of those solutions. So so that's what we do now.
So Bola, when you started this in January, you had this idea, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to take over the world and it's going to be amazing. And then March happened and you're like, uh-oh. So you found yourself in a position where you're having to pivot. What was the hardest part for you on a personal level about developing a new business model and looking at the marketplace and saying, the thing that I thought I was going to do, it's not really going to work right now? What was the hardest part of that for you?
Yeah, the hardest part, there were so many hard parts. Number one, when you walk away with an income and from an income that is guaranteed on a day-to-day basis, and you are looking to buffer by tapping into your savings and then putting a strategic plan for your business in place, and giving yourself some slack, thinking at most 6 months that should start having things come in and things will be good. And soon enough, you realize, number one, you're running really low on cash. No one is talking to you at all. So the potential of being able to then shore up and really stick to the plan that you've put into place is no longer viable. So as someone who is very much about, sticking to the plan and developing a strategy that we can operationalize and create a roadmap for, and voila, everything is solved. The hardest part was really not even having a clue as to what to do next, So I think, when you're a consultant, you're used to going to your customers and your clients with solutions, once again, based on best practices. But in this situation, best practices were irrelevant, and they just did not make sense to our clients' needs. So we really needed to, number one, hugely humble ourselves and really just feel comfortable with having them tell us, what their issues are, so that we can truly understand it, and then create and co-solution, so that we're not necessarily coming in as the experts, we're coming in as partners, as supporters. And I think that transition process was probably, as Nick talked about, the various stages of grief, and realizing I am going to be broke forever, and no one will ever talk to me. This is a failed business plan. So going through the various stages of grief there, but then realizing that, if I could just pivot and think about this in a different way, there's a solution that exists out there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one that I come up with exclusive. I can co-create with my customers, as well as all the other resources and consultants that we can tap into in a global world. So,
well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick, same question, but your pathway was different, right? Like, you had a thing. It wasn't like you just started this, but
right,
it all went away. So
exactly.
What was going through your mind, and what was the hardest part of basically figuring out, like, I employ a bunch of people, by the way, just so we have clarity, how many pre-pandemic, what did the company look like? How many employees did you have?
We were 10 full-time employees and 128 part-time employees in 9 states throughout the United States.
Okay.
So
this is a serious organization, right?
It was, yeah. And it will be again.
So tell us today, how many still are with us?
So right now we were able to maintain 4 of the full-time employees, and 2 of them who had been just employees before have bought in to be partners in the firm. So that was a very exciting piece of it for us. And of the 128 part-time employees, initially we had laid off all of them. But in the last year, we have been able to bring on about 35 back into the time of the positions that they had in the past.
Okay.
So we are still much smaller than we used to be, but we are moving in the right direction. We're continuing to grow and continuing to increase the size of to get back to where we were.
So from your standpoint, like, March happens and you're like, oh, snap.
Yeah, so to give everybody just a little bit of background on what exactly my company did. If has anybody played a trivia night at a bar or a restaurant or any of those things? If you've played it in Montgomery County, chances are that was one of my events. We had 120 different clients in the DMV, where we did a weekly event where we would draw anywhere from 55 to 275 people on a weekly basis. Everybody would come out, everybody would have a good time for 2 or 3 hours, and then everybody would go home. That, obviously did not work very well during a pandemic. Packing 275 people into a small bar on a Wednesday night seemed like a really bad idea. So one of the things that we had also done simultaneously with the public events was our private events. And being in the DC metro area, we had a leg up on people who do what I do across the country, in that a lot of the people here were very quick to hire us to do team building activities and to celebrate parties and anniversaries. And we had one weekend where we did a baby shower, we did a rehearsal dinner, baby shower, and wake on the same day. So we maintained all stages of life in one weekend. And that was it was a very small part of our business when the pandemic started. So what we were, the way we've been able to keep the lights on and continue moving forward during the pandemic is we had been able to increase the private event business. And Michael, to answer your question, what was the hardest part of doing this was it was coming to the realization of what the new market would be. We couldn't do what we had done before. We couldn't advertise our events and draw in huge groups of people under one roof in one place, shoulder to shoulder. We couldn't send our employees out into the world to interact with people on a daily basis. So where was the opportunity and what could we be doing? Prior to the pandemic, we had about 400 private event clients per year. Of those 400 private events, none of them were virtual. We had not done a single virtual event prior to the pandemic. In the past 12 months, so April to April, we have done more than 1,600 private events virtually as a result of, adapting to the pandemic. And the single biggest thing, like I was saying, the difficult part of that was realizing that A, there was a demand for these virtual events, and B, the private event market was so much more important than it ever was in the past. The concept of, like I said, we would do an event for Deloitte or for Accenture or for anybody that wanted to do team building events, wanted to bring their people together. And these were people that were working side by side in person every day, but this was a great way for them to interact with each other in a social environment outside of their normal work environment. Now everybody's outside of their normal work environment every day. Teams of people have been hired on, put together, forced to do all of these jobs, working together, training together without ever having met face to face, without ever knowing who this person is that they're working with and relying on a daily basis. And realizing, working with our clients, working with everybody we had done before, to echo what Bola had said, partnering together with people instead of telling them what best practices are, finding what these new best practices are, and then being able to take them and share them with all of the other people who haven't yet figured it out. And that's been the key. And that was what was difficult, was blazing a new path and finding a new way to interact with people. All of a sudden now, team building events are so important to every business that's out there. The teams, we are hearing from the people who are booking our events and who are running things, that in the past we'd had clients that had done once a month, once a quarter, once a year, they do an event. Now we have companies that are doing weekly events. They're doing their weekly trivia happy hours. The people, where we initially had 5 or 10 people in the company that were showing up for the events, we're now doing events of 60 and 70 people for that company. People are finding out that interacting with their coworkers, interacting with the people that they do business with, professionals spending time with their clients, accountants, financial planners, lawyers, that are having trouble staying in touch with the people that they're doing business with, are now hiring us to facilitate a social environment with which they can continue to be in front of their clients and continue to be top of mind. So being able to position ourselves as the bridge between everybody to continue some sort of social environment, and realizing that the need for that not only existed, tenfold more than it did in the past, but that the opportunity was available and that everybody was willing to accept the change, was very difficult for us to figure out. So that's been the difficult piece of it.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stay with you for just a second longer, Nick. You had a lot of people that you had to lay off. What was that conversation like when you told them?
As with most things in my life, the conversations that I had in my head about how it was going to go was much, much worse than how it actually went. we had a long discussion with the partners of my company as to what do we do. We have all these bills, we have all these debts, we have all of the interest we have to pay on loans we had taken out for all the expansion we had planned in 2020. And we have our last payroll that we have to put together. So how do we do this? How do we balance everything? And what we decided was the people are the key to our organization, the hosts that we have out in public running the events. We paid out our final payroll in full. And we said we'll figure the rest of it out later. And in doing that and in having the conversation with everybody, they knew it was coming. They knew that with the pandemic, with the everything the CDC was saying and then not saying and then saying again, that the one thing that nobody was arguing against was large groups of people coming together equals bad. So when we did end up having all of these conversations, and we had a lot of them one-on-one, there was a lot of, yeah, totally get it, totally understand what it is that you're going through, totally accept that this is the way it needs to be. The one thing that every single one of our employees asked was, when the time comes, when we're through to the other side, please keep me on speed dial, because I will be first in line to come back and be excited about it. So as always, as it is with most businesses, maintaining the relationships with the employees and making sure that everybody is informed of what's happening and what's going on and what the timelines are of things was key. I died a little inside every time I made those phone calls. And like I said before, the planning stages for it was torture. But having those conversations with every one of the employees that I had gotten to know over the years made me feel better every call. So yeah, it was bad laying off 128 people in one weekend. So the fact that they were so understanding, they were more concerned about the company than they were about themselves, which made me really happy. Just to realize that what we had built as a group, as a whole, was just as important to them as it was to me.
Well, it says an awful lot about you and your team's leadership that they want to come back, right? So there's a lot of people that could have been very, very angry.
Yeah.
For them to want to come back says a lot about that. You made the comment about best practices, and there's a book by Adam Grant. If you haven't read it, it's a great book called Think Again. And he asks us to re-envision the concept of best practices and basically eliminate that concept from our lives. But instead of best practices, better practices. Because no matter what you've done, it isn't the best practice. There's always a way to improve it, but as soon as you label it best practice, you basically make the assumption it can't be better. So stop it, don't do that, right? Like that's his perspective on it. And I think it really makes sense. And it was like one of those really simple, but very eye-opening comments in the book that really spoke to me. I'm like, oh, right, that is how we should live and how we should do everything. So Bola, along those lines, you're making all these changes and you're thinking, when you're on the sinking ship of this the plan from January, how fast were you able to transition to being able to find a way to turn MBA Growth Partners into something that could actually be viable when the thing that you had started with in January was looking pretty scary?
Yeah, I would say we're still making the transition. I think we were just grabbing at all straws for maybe a good 9 months there, still trying to do the best practices, as you said, sending out information about, how you should be operating at a business. And, sometimes it would connect, but most of the time it just was not really all that relevant. And I think it was probably sometime in September when I got together with some other, business advisors attorneys, CPAs, insurance brokers, to really just talk about, the state of the new norm. What should business owners be thinking about? And it was less from an advisory perspective, but from a, how can we all survive this on a day-to-day basis? And, what could we be doing to support each other? And what new ideas are out there that we could be leveraging? So soon enough, the ideas of best practices really got thrown out the window, because what we then started to embrace was really just the concept of change and all the innovation that's out there. And I think it was around that time that I realized, business really is about people. It's about collaboration, not only with your customers, but also with your partners. The people who are in your industries, who are contributors to your industry that you can constantly learn from, but who can also talk about what's working, what's not working. And I would say around September is when we really started holding webinars, not necessarily, because in my mind in the past, when we've had trainings, it would be a one-way conversation where we're telling our customers or clients what they should be thinking, what the trends are saying and what you should be considering. And then these webinars, as I'm sure, not dissimilar to this one, really became more of a, what's going on in the marketplace? What could we all be doing? How can we leverage social media better? What's going on with LinkedIn? What are all the cool functionalities that we can be thinking about from a business development perspective, even in trying to manage all the Zooms and getting back to people and reaching out, to folks from all over the world to really get information and tap into talent. It all became much more about being collaborative. So I would say at about September, we really pivoted from holding trainings to really just holding sessions where we invite small business owners, executives on a weekly basis, and just have conversations about what they're seeing in their businesses and what are the issues that they're trying to solve. And based on that, we'll look to bring other experts, to the next set of conversations and talk about some of what we're seeing and what's working, and the coolest, latest technology. So it was around that time that we also started trying out some of these concepts with our business as well. I think sometimes it can be difficult to really tap into change, particularly when you feel comfortable with what what you've developed over the years. But because of the environment that we're in, I think the biggest thing to really hold on to is that, things are changing so rapidly. So you really have to stay on your toes, and being able to build an organization that can be agile enough to really adopt and accept change.
Perfect. We have time for about 2 more questions. So, Bola, I'm going to stay with you for a second, and Nick will come back to you for our last question, and then we'll go to the group for Q&A. But Bola, with everything that you've learned over the last year, you were constantly in a crisis mode, right? Like you had just started the company. You're like, how does this work? How am I going to pivot? Maybe you're not quite far enough out from this yet, but I'm going to pose the question to you anyway. If you weren't in a crisis mode, what, if anything, would you have done differently?
If we were not in a crisis mode, I think we would just stuck with the business concept as initially conceptualized. And it was me leveraging my core capabilities and competencies and taking it into the marketplace and, sort of just offering those services into the marketplace, and whoever buys. But now there's so many ways that we are able to work with our clients. Some of those who are on the smaller end, we have different tiers of subscription model for, and it goes from, we just need maybe 2-3 hours a week of your time to think through an issue that we're having. We don't need you to implement. We just want to talk about some of the issues, or maybe even get the latest ideas or what you've seen in the industry. So that's a subscription model that goes from, very small to, we can get more time on the calendar, or even to the point where you can even have staff augmentation, where we have some folks on our team who can augment the talent pool that you have within your organization. We would never have thought about that because we were so project-based in our thinking and in our approach, which essentially meant we were leaving opportunities to help solve the issues that our clients were having on the table. In addition, we were so focused on the local community. We really were providing our services within Montgomery County for the most part because we wanted to show up in person, sit down belly to belly with the executives and really just talk about how to help them because they were showing up in person. And then all of a sudden, when everything is virtual, now you realize that not only can you work with businesses and executives from all over the country, but also the team of consultants and advisors that you can bring to provide those solutions can really be from all over as well. So that's something we would have never thought about. I never would have felt comfortable bringing a team of people that I've never met, I've never worked with for a substantial period of time, and feeling comfortable standing behind a solution that they will deliver in conjunction with me, but that I didn't have much control over. So I think what this really provided is, agility, flexibility, but once again, just the opportunity to bring a team of really smart people together from all over the world to really solve problems for our clients and to be able to do so at scale, not only locally, but nationally as well. So I think it just allowed us to, have greater influence, within a much more expansive geographic region.
So as you were describing that, one of the things that was coming to mind for me is, as much as the pandemic has sucked for so many people, and many people have lost loved ones and seen really dramatic negative influence as a result of the pandemic, for many of us, there's also a lot of beauty in it too, right? We're able to re-envision our lives and figure out that we didn't need it to be the way that it was. And there's so much positivity that we can draw from it if we're willing to allow ourselves to see it. So Nick, I want to end our question and answer section with you. You've got your private business and you've got your new business. Bola just talked a little bit about how she's going to be able to integrate, and she was able to pivot. Tell us a little bit about your plans of integrating the old business model of doing the in-person events with these virtual events and the private events.
Yeah, and with Trivial Rush, which is the app that we launched right around Thanksgiving, which is just an app that everybody can play trivia on their own on a daily basis on their phone. The benefit of it is that I don't think that the virtual trivia side of things, the ability to interact with teams all over the country, all over the world, the ability to put a host anywhere in the country with those groups of people is I don't believe that's going away. It probably will, it almost certainly cannot be sustained at the level that it is now with everybody at home sitting in front of their computers at all times. But I think the important piece of it that all of our clients are coming to the realization of is that the social aspect, the work environment, the camaraderie that exists between employees is just as important as the training when it comes to the type of work that is being produced by the companies. They need to trust each other and they need to interact. And that piece of it that has been gleaned over the course of the pandemic, that has been discovered as a result of these events that we've been able to put on, and the face-to-face, camera-to-camera interaction that we've been able to have will not be lost when it moves forward. So we plan on continuing to push the virtual events and the concept of team building as forward as much as we can in the new, when everything goes back to the way it was before. And the honestly, things will never go back to the 100% to the way we were doing things before. We have, the way we used to do trivia was we'd hand out pieces of paper and people would write down their answers and they would hand them into the hosts. That is all going by the wayside with some of the new tools that we've developed, where everything is now virtual, even in person. The host will still be there. They'll still be asking questions and making jokes and interacting with the audience. But instead of writing something down on a piece of paper, they're going to be entering the answers into their phones. And through that technology, through the development we've been able to put together, people are going to be able to learn about themselves. What are your good subjects? What are your bad? Do you know pop culture more than US history? Where should you study? Where should you learn? And when you want to learn those things and know new things, you can go to some of the other apps that we're developing that will help you learn about the American Revolution, will help you learn about Hastings War, will help you learn about, you know, all of the different pieces that you have. We have we're currently negotiating with the Japanese Ministry of Education to put together through trivia, essentially an educational software that introduces students in Japan to American culture, American pop culture, to the language, to the perspective that people have outside of the country of Japan. And with the writing staff that we have or the development staff we have in Armenia and the writing staff we have all over the Western Hemisphere, we're really excited about all the opportunities it'll bring and how we're able to take what we've been doing over the past year and just continuing to expand it and move it forward going into the future.
Very cool. So at this point in the presentation, I'd love to open it up for questions if anybody has any. Eileen?
I'd love to know, you just brought up a subject of you can find out which areas you're, good in and not. Where does this data go? I would hate for the world to know how dumb I am. So, so what happens with this data that you're gathering?
So yeah, all of basically we ask questions. They're all categorized by main category, subcategory. They're broken down by difficulty. They're divided up amongst, we have 27 different data points for every single question that we ask. And your answers go to your app. You are the one that gets to take a look at all that information and see it. It's stored on a server, but all of the data is parsed by the app and fed back to you, the players. The only pieces of information that get fed sort of upstream into the system are whether or not the question was answered correctly. And the reason for that is so that we can gauge the difficulty of the question. If I think the question is really, really, really easy, what do you get when you mix yellow and blue? Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? These are things that I put as 1-point questions. But if all of a sudden 50% of the audience gets the question wrong, well, then we need to reevaluate how difficult that is. And that's what the system automatically does, is it would track right versus wrong across the entire global implementation of the questions and then automatically adjust the difficulty as a result. So yeah, as of now, everything that we're looking at as far as that sort of data collection goes is just fed back down to the players themselves.
You're not selling it to anybody?
No, we actually, so the COO of my company, before he joined up as a co-owner of the company, was in cybersecurity for a number of defense contractors and was deployed over to Afghanistan for a while as a defense contractor. We have partnerships with some very large companies, NBC and Sony and National Geographic and places like that. And whenever we do that, they worry about our security and as far as everything we do. I can guarantee you that our security is better than theirs is, even if they're a multi-billion-dollar company, because of who we have in control of it. And I say that with very much confidence in what it is that we do. And one of the tenets of the company is we will never sell information. We have never collected email addresses from anybody. We have never sent out a mailer to people who are interested in what we were doing or when we were doing it. We don't do that, and we will not sell it, mainly because it really annoys me and I don't want to be part of the process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions, Sylvia?
Yeah, this is for Nicholas only because Bola, we have met and been in discussions in the past. So part of what collaboration conversations have been all about in the last couple of years. But Nicholas, so I'm thinking in terms of DEI or diversity inclusiveness. I don't do trivia games, or I hadn't, so
Sure.
I'm not really familiar with a lot of what you do. But what's striking me is if you are doing or contemplating getting involved in, I'll say, the history of others, whether it's people of color, whether it's LGBT, whether it's all the other ways you can be, women's history, do trivia. This strikes me as a fun way to have the diversity and inclusive conversations. And I know I'm a speaker and coach myself, and I know other speakers and coaches who do DEI training. I don't. And I'm thinking, geez, that could be a nice referral to them if you're doing something like that.
Yeah, so a huge piece of what trivia has been over the past, I mean, it started for the most part in the UK in the late 70s and early 80s. And for the last 50 years has been dominated, absolutely dominated by people who look like me, 40-year-old white men. We write the trivia questions. It's our perspective that's out there in the world. We are the face of trivia. And there is very little inclusion of other perspectives. Most of that is not intentional, as I mean, it is a lot, but sometimes it's not. A lot of it is just who is drawn to that kind of thing and what goes forward. That being said, so the database of questions that we have in place for all of the apps that we have out in public, it's about 100,000 unique questions that all have all of these different data points that are associated with them in a multitude of different backgrounds and categories. I have written half of them. The head of my writing department, who is also a 40-year-old white male, has written a quarter of them. And it was only in the last 3 years that we were able to grow to a point where we could actually hire a staff. And the writing staff that we hired, all independent writers and independent contractors, that's when we started getting a lot more focused on diversity and inclusivity and all of those aspects. Half of our writing staff was male, half of our writing staff was female. We had 20 writers. We had a third of our writing staff was from the LGBTQ plus community. The point of inclusion and there are so many of the people that I have interacted with in the national community where diversity, inclusion, acceptance, non-othering of other people, the conversations that happen daily on the forums that we are all involved in are plentiful and significant. My plan, it's funny that you bring this up, because 3/4 of our questions have been written by 40-year-old white males. My plan is that when we fully launch back into where we're going and we have the funds to do it, we are planning on rehiring not just a 20-writer position. We're trying to go to 50 writers. And my plan is, at the very least, until the next 100,000 questions have been entered into the system, that all of those writers, all 50 of them, will be female, will be people of color, will be people from non-white male backgrounds, so that at the very least, half of what we have in the system is from not my perspective. And I think that, as you were saying, the importance of that is so much so that, I keep it rolling like that for as long as we possibly can, and have the more education there is on the points of view that are not the ones that I have, the better off everybody is across the board. And that is, I've had so many conversations in the last 2 months about exactly that. And we've just recently formulated the opinion of bringing the staff, the writing staff back on and who we were going to hire. And to your point, that is exactly the point of view that we want to start offering, that we want to be able to increase.
Assuming, I mean, that wasn't to put you on the spot, but assuming you're open to referrals, I'm going to connect you with a couple people I know who do that work, because I mean, coming from a major corporation where they said, we're going to have diversity training. I mean, my eyes always cross and roll.
Yeah, no.
And I know now they're looking at things that are, quote, aren't training, but a fun way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, we are always open to referrals, and honestly, 50 writing positions, it's probably going to be the better part of a year before we get back there. But 50 writing positions, I don't know that many people that fit into the mold that we want to start producing. So anything that they have, I'm keeping your number on speed dial, and we'll talk.
Well, folks, it was a pleasure getting to spend the afternoon with you guys and gals, and I'm going to kick it back to Carmen, if Carmen is still here.
Yes, I am still here. Yes, thank you guys so much. What a great conversation. A couple of things that I gleaned from it as we move forward, let's not forget the importance of just taking that step back, because we never know what kind of ideas we might get from just taking a step back, getting out of the day-to-day, because we might be able to either expand our capacity or solve someone else's problem. And I think another point that hit home is the importance of collaboration and partnerships to figure things out as we move forward. So those are two things that I know that really resonated with me, and I hope that you found something beneficial to take away from our expert panel. I want to thank Bola and Nick and Michael for doing such a great job. I wouldn't be a Leadership Montgomery employee if I didn't remind you guys that applications are due tomorrow. So if you know anybody who is thinking about applying or started that application for our core senior or emerging leaders program, please have them hit submit. And don't forget about our lead forum, which is coming up on June 11th. We're going to do a hybrid forum where we will be in person or virtual for the first part of the day, and we're going to have an in-person, very safe outdoor networking opportunity, which I have missed completely, and I'm sure that you have too. So we'll take this recording and we'll put it up so that you can revisit, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.